She walked through the broken doorway of a huge house so damaged that even the rats had left. But what her rough, worn hands would find under those decaying wooden floors wasn't just gold. It was a secret that someone could die for, and someone already did. Before we start, tell us where in the world you are watching from. If you like stories like this, make sure to click that subscribe button, because tomorrow's show is really amazing. Let's begin. The notice saying they had to leave their apartment had been stuck to their door for 3 days before Maya Chen finally pulled it down. Not because she'd gotten the money for rent. She hadn't, but because her 8-year-old son Marcus kept reading it out loud every morning before school, and his voice got quieter each time. The paper crumpled in her hand as she watched him tie his shoes with shoelaces she'd fixed twice using fishing line. His sneakers had holes where his toes poked through. But he never said anything about it, never asked why breakfast was just toast again, why the lights blinked when it rained, why other kids had things they didn't. Maya worked 3 jobs. She worked mornings at the place that washes clothes for factories. She cleaned office buildings in the afternoons. She worked weekends at the grocery store. Her hands were always red from cleaning chemicals and hot water. Her back was bent from leaning over mop buckets, but none of it was enough. Not in San Francisco. Not as a mother raising her child alone. Not when every dollar seemed to disappear so fast. That Tuesday morning, she was cleaning the fancy bathroom on the 40th floor of some computer company when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. The people she owed money to had gotten sneaky lately, but something made her pick up. Maya Chen. The voice was businesslike, polite. If this is about the MasterCard, I already told you. Miss Chen, my name is Harrison Webb. I'm a lawyer with Webb Associates. I'm calling about your great-aunt, Lily Chen. Maya's hand stopped moving on the toilet brush. Aunt Lily. She'd met her maybe 3 times when she was little. She remembered her as a skinny woman who smelled like old closets and gave out hard butterscotch candies that weren't fresh. The family had stopped talking decades ago after some fight Maya never understood. She died last month, the lawyer continued. I'm sorry for your loss. Maya felt a tiny bit of guilt, but not sadness. You can't feel sad about someone you never really knew. The reason I'm calling, Harrison Webb cleared his throat, is that she put you in her will. You've received her property in Marin County. The toilet brush fell from Maya's hand, hitting the toilet bowl with a clang. Property? It's complicated. The house has been empty for a long time. There's a lot of damage and spray paint. The county has been asking us to tear it down. But Miss Chen was very clear. The property was supposed to go to you, just you. Maya's mind raced. Property meant it was worth something. Worth something meant selling. Selling meant keeping their apartment. Buying Marcus real shoes. Maybe even putting some money away for his college that she'd been pretending to save for. How much is it worth? She asked, hating how desperate she sounded. Webb paused. The way it is now, the land might sell for $30,000 or $40,000 after paying to clear it. But Miss Chen left instructions. She really wanted you to visit the property before making any decisions. She was very serious about that. $40,000. Not enough to change their lives forever, but enough to breathe easier for a while. Text me the address, Maya said. I'll go this weekend. That Saturday, Maya borrowed her neighbor's beat-up Honda. Her own car had been taken away 2 months ago, and drove Marcus across the Golden Gate Bridge. He pressed his face against the window, counting boats in the bay, not knowing that his mother's hands were shaking on the steering wheel. The GPS led them through Marin's curvy roads, past houses that looked like they belonged in magazines, until the smooth road turned to gravel, then dirt. The trees grew thick and wild, branches scratching the car's sides. Maya was starting to think she'd made a wrong turn when she saw it. The mansion rose up from the wild plants like something from a scary dream. 3 floors of what used to be a beautiful old Victorian house, now broken and bent. Windows shattered. Walls covered with spray paint. The front door hung crooked on its hinges. Roof tiles were scattered across the yard like dead leaves. Mom? Marcus's voice was small. Is this it? Maya turned off the engine, staring at what $40,000 looked like. Her throat got tight. Yeah, baby. This is it. They walked carefully through the tall grass, Maya holding Marcus's hand tight. Broken glass crunched under their feet. The front porch sagged under their weight, the boards soft from rot. Inside was worse. Everything that could be taken had been. Copper pipes, light fixtures, doorknobs. Spray paint covered the walls. The smell hit them hard. Mold, rot, and something else. Something like dead animals. It stinks, Marcus said, holding his nose. Maya wanted to turn around, get back in the car, forget this place existed. But they'd driven all this way. And somewhere in her mind, Webb's words repeated. She was very serious about that. They moved through the rooms like ghosts. The house had been beautiful once. She could see it in the structure. Fancy ceiling trim, marble fireplaces, A grand staircase that curved like a question mark, but time and being ignored had turned beauty into ruin. In what must have been the dining room, Maya noticed something strange. While every other room had been completely vandalized, one section of floor looked different, newer. The wood didn't match the rest, and the shiny coating was all wrong. "Marcus, stay by the door," she said. She knelt beside the mismatched boards, running her fingers along the cracks. They'd been replaced recently, maybe a few years ago, but why? Everything else in the house was original, rotting, forgotten. Why fix just this? She found a broken piece of metal in the corner, part of an old heater, and stuck it between the boards. The wood was soft, probably damaged by water. It gave way easily. Too easily. Beneath was a space, carefully cut out, and in that space was a metal box, heavy and old, with her aunt's initials carved on top. Elsie. Maya's heart pounded as she lifted it out. Her hands shook from the weight. Inside, wrapped in oily cloth, was a leather journal and a small brass key. The first page of the journal was dated 40 years ago, written in her aunt's neat handwriting. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're here, which means you're desperate enough to look. Good. Desperate people pay attention. This house has kept its secrets for 60 years. I've added my own. The real treasure isn't what you'll find. It's what finding it will teach you. Start in the basement, northeast corner. The key opens what everyone missed." Maya looked up to find Marcus watching her, eyes wide. "Mom, what is it?" She closed the journal, her mind spinning. "I don't know yet, baby. But I think Aunt Lily left us more than just a broken house." The basement door had been painted over so many times it took Maya 20 minutes with the broken heater piece to pry it open. The stairs went down into darkness that seemed to eat their phone flashlights. The smell was worse down here, damp earth and decades of neglect. Marcus held tight to her hand as they went down. "I don't like it down here." "I know, baby. We'll be quick." The basement was like a maze of stone walls and rotting wood beams. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. Maya got her bearings. Northeast corner. Their flashlights swept across empty shelves, rusty tools, piles of moldy newspapers. Then she saw it. A section of stone wall that didn't match. The cement between the stones was different, newer, like the floorboards upstairs. She ran her hand along it until she found what she was looking for, a keyhole. Painted over but unmistakable. The brass key from the journal fit perfectly. Something clicked deep in the wall. A section of stone swung inward on hidden hinges, showing a narrow hallway. Maya's flashlight beam disappeared into the darkness beyond. "Mom, no," Marcus whispered. "Please don't go in there." Every instinct told her he was right. But they were 3 days from being homeless, and Aunt Lily had gone to huge trouble to hide whatever was back there. "Stay right here," Maya said. "If I'm not back in 2 minutes, you run to the car and call 911. "Okay," Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. Maya squeezed through the passage. It opened into a small room, maybe 8 feet square. Her flashlight beam swept across the space and stopped. The walls were lined with metal shelves, and on those shelves, stacked like bricks, were gold bars. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Maya's legs gave out. She sat hard on the cold floor, flashlight shaking in her hand. Each bar was stamped with numbers, dates, official stamps. They glowed dimly in the beam. Beautiful and terrible and impossible. A piece of paper was tacked to the wall in her aunt's handwriting. The Yamamoto family gold, hidden here in 1942 before they were sent to the camps. They never came back for it. "I found it by accident in 1963 when I bought the house. Kept it safe all these years waiting for their family members. I hired investigators, searched records, but the whole family died in Manzanar. No one left to claim it. It's yours now, Maya, but remember, this gold was bought with blood. Use it wisely. Use it to build something that lasts. And never forget whose dreams died so yours could live." Lily. Maya couldn't breathe. She picked up one bar with trembling hands. It was heavier than she expected, cold against her palms. Real, impossibly real. "Mom," Marcus's voice echoed from the basement. "Are you okay?" She set the bar down carefully, mind racing. "How many were there? What were they worth? How did you even sell gold bars? And what kind of person hoarded tragedy for 60 years? She grabbed 3 bars, all she could carry, and squeezed back through the passage. Marcus gasped when he saw what she was holding. "Is that real gold?" "I think so, baby. Are we rich now?" Maya looked at her son, at his 2 small shoes and patched jacket, at the hope blooming in his eyes like something fragile and precious. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but we're not going to be kicked out." They drove back to the city in silence. 3 gold bars wrapped in Marcus's jacket in the trunk. Maya's mind churned with questions and math. Each bar had to be worth what? Hundreds of thousands? Millions? The trunk of a borrowed Honda held more money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes, but Aunt Lily's words haunted her. This gold was bought with blood. That night, after Marcus was asleep, Maya sat at their tiny kitchen table with her laptop, researching the Yamamoto family, Manzanar. Executive Order 9066, she read until her eyes burned, piecing together a story that made the gold feel heavier. The Yamamoto family had owned 3 successful businesses in San Francisco before the war. When the orders came to leave, they had weeks to sell everything. Bad people circled, offering almost nothing for property and inventory. Somehow, they'd turned what they could into gold, hidden it, planning to rebuild after the war. They never got the chance. The parents died of pneumonia in the camps. Their daughter died having a baby. The son joined the army and died in Italy, fighting for a country that had locked up his family. Maya found their photos in an old newspaper website. The daughter looked like her, same cheekbones, same determined look on her face. It made her sick. She was still staring at the screen when her phone rang. Unknown number, Miss Chen. The voice was male, unfamiliar. My name is Richard Carver. I understand you recently received a property in Marin. Maya's blood went cold. How did you know that? Public records, Miss Chen. I represent a development group very interested in that land. We're prepared to make a generous offer. Say $200,000 cash. We could close by Monday, $200,000. A week ago, she would have cried at the number. Now, with 3 gold bars hidden in her closet worth maybe 10 times that, it sounded like a threat. I'm not interested, she said. I encourage you to reconsider. That property has been an eyesore for years. There have been incidents, accidents. It's not safe. Especially for a single mother. Your son Marcus, isn't it? He's 8. Ice flooded her veins. How do you know my son's name? Like I said, public records. We've done our homework. We know you're facing being kicked out. We know you need this money. Don't let pride cost you everything. The line went dead. Maya's hands shook as she double-checked the locks, pulled the curtains tight. They knew about Marcus. They knew about the eviction. What else did they know? She thought about the gold sitting in her closet, about the hidden room, about secrets worth killing for. 'Cause that's what this was now, wasn't it? Not just an inheritance, but a target painted on their backs. The next morning, she called in sick to all 3 jobs and drove Marcus to school herself, watching the mirrors for anyone following. Then she went to the only person she could think of who might help, her former employer, David Kim. David ran a small law firm specializing in property fights. She'd cleaned his offices for 3 years before the company switched to a cheaper service. He'd always been kind, always asked about Marcus. Maya. He looked surprised when she walked into his office. What brings you here? She told him everything. The house, the gold, the phone call. His expression grew darker with each detail. You're in serious danger, he said when she finished. That kind of money, people have killed for far less. What do I do? David thought for a moment. First, we need to secure the gold legally, establish where it came from, file the proper claims. Then we need to find out who's really behind this development group. He paused. Maya? That gold. It's not just valuable, it's historically important. The story behind it, the Yamamoto family. This could be one of the largest recoveries of internment-era assets ever found. What happens next will turn this story upside down, reveal a conspiracy decades in the making, and show why Maya's discovery threatened people who'd do anything to keep their secrets buried. If you're hooked on this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. The first attack came 3 nights later. Maya woke to the sound of breaking glass. She grabbed Marcus and locked them both in the bathroom, calling 911 with shaking hands. By the time police arrived, the intruders were gone. Nothing stolen, but the message was clear. The living room window shattered, their few belongings thrown around and spray-painted on the wall. Leave it alone. The officers took photos, filled out reports, promised more patrols. But Maya saw the truth in their eyes. Apartment break-ins were common in their neighborhood. No one was going to protect them. David Kim called the next morning, his voice grim. I've been digging into this development group. Shell company registered in Delaware, but I traced the funding. Maya, you're not going to believe this. Try me. The money leads back to a trust. A very old trust established in 1942 by 3 prominent San Francisco families. Families that got very rich very fast, buying up properties from Japanese Americans forced to sell before. Internment, Maya's stomach turned. They profited from families like the Yamamotos, and they've been protecting that secret ever since. That house, it wasn't random. One of those families owned it briefly in 42. I think they knew the gold was hidden there. They've been waiting for your aunt to die, planning to buy the property cheap and claim the gold themselves, but Aunt Lily found it first. Exactly. And she spent 40 years making sure they never got their hands on it. Maya thought about her aunt, alone in that broken mansion, keeping watch over someone else's stolen dreams. It must have been a lonely job. There's more, David said. I found records of other properties these families bought. Similar patterns. Quick sales, families who never returned, valuables that disappeared. Maya, this could be bigger than just your gold. This could be evidence of organized theft covered up for 80 years. That afternoon, Maya did something that would have seemed impossible a week ago. She rented safety deposit boxes at 3 different banks, dividing the 3 gold bars between them. Then she went back to the mansion. She parked a quarter-mile away and walked in on foot, Marcus safe at a friend's house. The property looked different in daylight, less frightening but more sad. She could see what it had been, a place where a family had laughed, had dreamed, had packed their whole life into hidden gold, hoping to return. The basement passage was as she'd left it. She squeezed through to the hidden room. This time with a proper flashlight and a camera, she needed to document everything. The full count took her breath away. 347 gold bars, each weighing about 25 pounds. At current prices, David had calculated roughly $100 million, a fortune that had sat in darkness while its owners died of pneumonia and heartbreak. She photographed everything, including serial numbers and stamps. Then she found something else, a leather bag tucked behind the bottom shelf. Inside were documents, deeds, business licenses, family photos, and a journal. The journal was Kenji Yamamoto's, the father. His English was perfect, his handwriting neat. The final entry was dated February 19, 1942. Tomorrow we report to the assembly center. I've told no one about the gold, not even Sachiko. If we don't return, I pray someone with a good heart finds it. Use it to fight for justice. Use it to remember us. Maya sat in that small room, surrounded by one family's last hope, and cried for them, for her aunt who'd guarded their secret, for herself and Marcus, and everyone who'd been crushed by other people's greed. When she came out, she wasn't the same person who'd entered. That night, she called David. I want to do something. Not just take the money and run. Something bigger. What did you have in mind? A foundation, a museum. Something that tells their story, all their stories. And I want to find the families who bought up the properties. I want them exposed. David was quiet for a moment. That's going to be war, Maya. These families have money, lawyers, connections. They've kept this secret for 80 years. They won't go down without a fight. Then I guess we better get ready to fight. The call came at 3:00 a.m. Maya jerked awake, heart pounding. Unknown number. You have something that doesn't belong to you. The voice was cold, measured. We're willing to make this simple. $5 million. You walk away with more money than you could spend in a lifetime. Everyone wins. The Yamamoto family doesn't win, Maya said. The Yamamoto family is dead, has been for 80 years. You can't help them now. Maybe not. But I can make sure everyone knows what happened to them. That would be unwise. You have a son? Marcus, 8 years old, goes to Hoover Elementary, Miss Peterson's class. Maya's blood turned to ice. If you touch him, we don't hurt children, Miss Chen. But accidents happen, especially to people who don't know when to take a generous offer. The line went dead. Maya didn't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, she made 2 calls. First to David Kim, second to a name he'd given her, Patricia Walsh, an investigative journalist with the Chronicle who'd spent her career exposing corruption. They met at a diner in Oakland, Patricia bringing a photographer. Maya told the whole story, showing photos, documents, her aunt's journal. Patricia's eyes grew wider with each revelation. This is it, Patricia breathed. This is the story that changes everything. Do you understand what you have here? Not just the gold, but proof. Proof of organized theft, of conspiracy, of families building empires on stolen dreams. I understand someone threatened my son last night, Maya said. I understand I'm in over my head. Patricia leaned forward. Then let's get you some protection. Once this story breaks, they won't be able to touch you. Too many eyes watching. But we need to move fast. Within 48 hours, Maya's life became a whirlwind. Federal agents arrived to secure the gold and investigate the threats. Historians from UC Berkeley came to examine the documents. Patricia's story ran on the front page, The $100 Million Secret, How One Woman Uncovered 8 Decades of Buried Injustice. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Descendants of internment families contacted Maya, sharing their own stories of loss. Historians called it one of the most significant discoveries related to Japanese internment. The 3 families David had identified, the Carvers, Hamiltons, and Moores, issued statements through lawyers denying all wrongdoing. But the evidence was damning. Documents Maya found showed organized targeting of Japanese-owned properties. Letters between the families discussed opportunities created by evacuation orders. Bank records showed massive profits from resold properties. The threats stopped. Too much attention now. Too many people watching, but Maya knew it wasn't over. At the press conference announcing the formation of the Yamamoto Foundation, she stood at a podium in a borrowed suit, Marcus beside her, and spoke to a room full of cameras. Kenji Yamamoto wrote that he hoped someone with a good heart would find his family's gold, she said, voice steady despite her nerves. My Aunt Lily Chen found it and kept it safe for 40 years. She passed that responsibility to me. Today, I'm passing it to all of us. She announced the Foundation's mission to preserve the stories of internment, to support descendants seeking justice, to ensure this history was never buried again. The gold would fund it all: museums, scholarships, legal aid for families still fighting to recover stolen property. This gold was bought with one family's dreams, she continued. It's time those dreams did some good. The applause was thunderous, but Maya barely heard it. She was thinking about Aunt Lily, alone in that mansion all those years, keeping watch. She was thinking about the Yamamotos, packing their life into gold bars, believing they'd return. She was thinking about Marcus, who would grow up in a world where their story, all their stories, would be remembered. 6 months later, the mansion had been transformed. No longer vandalized and rotting, it stood restored as the Yamamoto-Chen Memorial Center. The basement where Maya had found the gold was now a museum, the hidden room preserved exactly as it was, telling the story of one family's loss and two women's courage to preserve their memory. Maya stood in the main hall, watching school groups tour the exhibits. Marcus was with his class, proudly telling everyone his mom had found the gold, had saved the stories, had changed everything. David Kim joined her, smiling. The Carver family settled, agreed to return 17 properties to descendant families and pay reparations. The Hamiltons are still fighting, but we'll get them. And the Moores, grand jury indictment next week. Turns out threatening a child was the least of their crimes. Maya nodded, satisfied but tired. She'd traded 3 jobs for one massive responsibility. The foundation consumed her days, but it felt different. This exhaustion had purpose. Any regrets? David asked. You could have just taken the money, disappeared. No one would have blamed you. Maya thought about it. 3 gold bars could have solved every problem in her life. All 347 could have bought her an island. Instead, she lived in a modest apartment, nicer than before. The foundation paid her a director's salary and spent her days fighting battles that started before she was born. No, she said finally. No regrets. She watched Marcus with his classmates, reading the plaques, understanding history not as distant facts, but as something personal, something that mattered. He'd grown 3 inches in 6 months and his shoes finally fit. But more than that, he walked taller, prouder, carrying himself like someone who knew where he came from and where he was going. Patricia Walsh approached, notebook in hand. She'd won a Pulitzer for her series on the discovery and had become a close friend. Bad news. The Moore family just hired Whitman Associates? They're going to claim the gold was theirs all along, that the Yamamotos sold it to them. Let them try, Maya said. We have the receipts. We have the truth. You know they'll make your life hell, Maya smiled, thinking of eviction notices and empty refrigerators and 3 jobs that barely paid the bills. Thinking of a broken mansion and buried gold and threats in the night. They already did, but I'm still here. That evening, after the crowds had gone and the center was quiet, Maya walked alone through the rooms. In the main hall hung portraits of the Yamamoto family, painted from the few photos that survived. Kenji and Sachiko, their children, all gone too soon, but no longer forgotten. Next to them hung a photo of Lily Chen, stern and watchful, the guardian who'd kept their secret safe. And in the corner, almost hidden, was a small plaque Maya had insisted on. For all the families whose stories are still buried, we're still digging. She locked up carefully, checking every door, every window. Outside, the California sun was setting, painting the sky gold. Marcus waited by their own car, bought honest and clear. Ready to go home? He asked. Yeah, baby. Let's go home. As they drove away, Maya caught a glimpse of the mansion in her rearview mirror. It looked different now. Not broken, not haunted, just a house with a story, finally told. Her phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. My grandmother lost everything in 1942. We heard about your foundation. Can you help us? Maya smiled, typing back with one hand while she drove. Yes, we can help, because that's what you did with buried treasure. You didn't hoard it. You spread it around, letting light into dark places, turning old pain into new possibility.
You honored the dead by fighting for the living, and you never ever forgot whose dreams made yours possible. The Yamamoto family never got to reclaim their gold.
But in the hands of a woman who understood what it meant to have nothing, who knew what it cost to survive, their legacy became something more powerful than money. It became memory. It became justice. It became hope. And in a world that so often buried its sins and forgot its victims, That was worth more than all the gold ever hidden. The road stretched ahead, lit by streetlights and possibility. Marcus chatted about his field trip, about the museum, about how his teacher said he could write his history report on the Yamamoto family. Maya listened, one hand on the wheel, the other reaching over to squeeze his shoulder. They'd started this journey with an eviction notice and empty pockets. They'd found gold and danger and purpose. But most of all, they'd found their place in a story bigger than themselves, older than their troubles, deeper than any basement. As they pulled into their apartment complex, a decent place now, with working locks and lights that didn't flicker, Maya thought about Aunt Lily one last time, the woman who'd lived alone with $100 million secret, waiting for someone desperate enough to look, brave enough to dig, foolish enough to care. "Thank you," Maya whispered to the night air. "I hope I made you proud." Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, she could almost swear she heard an answer, a whisper of wind that sounded like an old woman's voice saying simply, "You did good, child. You did good." Anyone can find treasure if they're willing to look in broken places, but it takes true courage to share it with the world. As the morning sun painted San Francisco's skyline gold, Maya Chen stood on the steps of City Hall, watching history finally correct itself. The last of the stolen properties had been returned. The guilty had been named, and the Yamamoto Foundation had become a beacon for families still, searching for their own buried truths. A mother who once counted pennies for her son's shoes had become the keeper of stories worth more than gold, because Maya had learned what her aunt always knew. Sometimes the real treasure isn't what you find, it's what you choose to do with it. And sometimes a vandalized mansion holds more than secrets. It holds the power to heal wounds that have festered for generations. The end. Up next, 2 more powerful stories that will move your heart. Click now to continue this journey of discovery. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe every family's story deserves to be remembered.